Hello, everyone. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 30 years. Staffed by senior industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Micon's mineral resource specialist, Alan San Martin.
Hello everyone, I am Alan San Martin. Welcome to Micon Insights, the podcast where we dive into the world of mining and you hear from the experts in the field. We provide informative and engaging discussions to help you know more about our capabilities. Before we begin, this is our sustainability statement. At Micon, we work with our clients to promote responsible mining and to integrate the principles of sustainability into their mining projects. I have an important announcement to make. As you know, this coming weekend is the PDAC 2023, and we are excited to participate in the convention, having a booth. Here you can see the information. We'll be happy to see you visiting us. And we are in the North Building at booth 7308N. Okay. The topic for today is due diligence reports and independent engineer perspective. I'm here today with our president of Micon International, Chris Jacobs. Aside of leading the company, Chris Jacobs is a mining economist, and he's based in our Toronto office. Hello, Chris. How are you today? Welcome to Micon Insights.
Thank you, Alan. I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So if we can start by the basics of what is a technical due diligence in mining and who needs it?
Well, I'll perhaps start with the second part of that question. All mining industry investors, whether they represent private capital or institutional lenders, they need to balance their exposure to risk against expected returns on the project. And that requires an understanding of the source and relative magnitude of the risks that attach to any specific company or project. In other words, they need to have applied due diligence in making their investment decision. But many potential investors don't maintain an in-house staff with the expertise to assess the full range of technical risks and opportunities that are typically associated with mining projects. So a mining industry consultant like Micon can act as the lender's independent engineer, or IE, and provide that expertise by assigning a team with the required skills and experience to conduct the technical due diligence investigation of the investment target on behalf of that potential investor. Now, to answer the what part of that question, the nature of the assignment will very definitely be tailored to the size and the scope of the project, and to the specific needs of the investor, because after all, the aim is to complement rather than replace the in-house due diligence team. So it doesn't lend itself to a cookie cutter or one-size-fits-all type of approach. It needs to be tailored, and in addition to managing the purely technical or commercial risks, institutional rules and good corporate governance would most often require compliance with World Bank Equator Principles and IFC's performance standards on environmental and social sustainability. And that can be included in the independent engineer's scope of work.
All right, so who does this due diligence work?
Well, I've mentioned that we tailor the teams to the individual assignment, but on a large multidisciplinary assignment, we typically see a geologist, a database specialist, or geostatistician, a mining engineer, geotechnical or geohydrological engineer, a metallurgist or process engineer, and an environmental engineer, along with, if necessary, if it's part of our scope, then we would include social impact specialists, mineral marketing, and overall looking at the mining economics, someone such as myself. So where the project requires very specific infrastructure, and I'm thinking here of something like a pipeline or a port development or railways, then we would bring in specialist expertise to onto the team.
All right. So this is quite a variety of specialized professionals. So what does due diligence cover?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. The market price of the product would typically be the most sensitive value driver for any mining project. But this is usually seen by the investor as a purely financial risk. It's not necessarily seen as a technical risk. And so very often the metal price forecasting is outside the scope of the independent engineer's review. So what we then cover on the technical risks would be the resource estimation, the geological model, and the style of the mineralization, the QA, QC, quality control on the information that's been collected, the samples, the analytical work, the database, and then of course the actual resource estimation itself, and the classification of that resource. The selection of an appropriate mining method, whether it be open pit or underground, the metallurgical test work that's been carried out on the deposit to verify the recoverability of each of the metals of value and any deleterious elements that are in there. Most importantly, the capital and operating cost estimates for the project, and any sort of contractual obligations, such as an offtake agreement for the product, and then looking at the broader context, the degree of support for the project from local communities and the availability of labor that will form the workforce for the project during construction and operations, and the experience of the project management team in executing a project.
Okay, so it's quite a lot of details to cover. So when Micon is engaged to do a due diligence, how does Micon conduct this work?
Right. Well, these days, typically we're given access to an electronic data room, and we would conduct a desktop review of the available information, and form some sort of opinion of the work that's been done and ask questions around that. But then we would follow that with a site visit. The site visit and a meeting with the technical team is a critical part of the process in forming an opinion about the project. It's not purely a desktop study. The visit gives the independent engineer a first-hand appreciation, not only of the project itself, but the regional or social setting and the infrastructure and availability of a workforce, the transport and communications infrastructure, amongst other things, power supply, water supply, many other issues that become apparent during a site visit that are difficult to appreciate purely from a desktop viewpoint. And the meeting allows the due diligence team to assess the degree to which the alternative scenarios might have been considered, so that the view that's or the plan that's presented to potential investors can be compared to alternatives and the capacity of the sponsor's team to execute the project successfully.
Yeah, now that you mentioned sponsors, so what part does the project proponent play in a due diligence?
Yeah, thank you, Al. Yeah, I might use the term sponsor or proponent. Essentially, the company that is promoting the project and is seeking the investment. Well, the emphasis on any due diligence assignment is on the assessment of downside risk from the point of view of an equity investor or lender. But it's also important for the independent engineer to identify opportunities to enhance the project value. And this requires that all the participants, and especially the proponent's team, should contribute positively to the process. After all, while we're probing for gaps or flaws in the technical studies, the proponent team needs to show that it's dealt consistently with all the issues raised. And when they do that, then confidence in other areas of the project also naturally grows higher. Conversely, of course, a reluctance to discuss details of the work or an inability to explain the background to a choice where there's a technical option, that will inevitably prolong the investigation. It creates doubts and reduces the perceived confidence in other areas of the project as well.
Okay, so how does the independent engineer meet the client's expectations?
Fundamentally, the client's expectation will be that the IE should identify all the material risks and be able to advise on the potential impact on financial returns. That advice is typically presented in a formal due diligence report, which gives the background to those findings and provides recommendations comprising any modifications that might be required to the fundamental parameters of the project, the mineral resource estimate, the reserve model, assumptions about timing and cost, and ramp up, for instance, and of course the operating and capital costs, and any contingencies for cost overruns that might be required. The report will also list areas of concern that should be addressed, before financing can proceed. And so in that way, the due diligence report becomes a key document in the client's management of the project as it moves forward. The usefulness of the opinions expressed will be judged according to how well those opinions can be supported and how material they are to the assessed value of the investment. The duration of the investment will be different for equity and debt investors, and the IE's reports and opinion must take that into account.
All right, so if we start wrapping up this for a takeaway for our audience, what is the Micon's final word of advice for due diligence in mining?
Okay. The final word. Well, the IE must act solely in its client's interest, and in other words, in the interest of the lenders or prospective lenders. And the IE's team is most effective when its team members are able to develop a professional relationship with their counterparts on the sponsor's team. So this isn't adversarial. And at the same time, having identified areas of concern, the IE must be able to offer an objective opinion on significance and potential mitigation of those concerns. Depending on whether those opinions coincide with the sponsor's view, this may result in the independent engineer either being seen as too supportive of the project, too close to the sponsor, or being seen by the sponsor as being overcritical. So we need to maintain a balance, and the opinions that an IE expresses must be carefully weighed and balanced. Another area that where the IE can be caught in the middle, as it were, is when the due diligence assignment is structured in a way that it's the as I mentioned, we're working on behalf of the client, but we're being paid by the sponsor. So there's an apparent conflict of interest there, which means that really all three parties need to sign an agreement that spells out the responsibilities of each party. So last word, to complete an IE assignment successfully, we need to play the part of auditor, of critic, partly detective, and importantly, as a diplomat, while providing objective, dispassionate, and overall independent overview of all aspects of the project.
All right, Chris. That was a very insightful discussion of due diligence. Thank you very much for sharing with us today.
You're very welcome.
All right, have a good day. And for our audience, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer via email or phone call. Or even better, if you're attending the PDAC, we are going to be there, and we'll be happy to have you in our booth in the North Building, booth 7308. Okay, thank you very much. We are now ending this broadcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you're kept informed on future episodes.